Mr.
Yes. Let me first start by introducing
Yes.
uh,
Uh,
Madam. A brief introduction. I know her, and we have been communicating since 2015. I'm from the college that she teaches now. So I'm an alumni of Lady Brabourne College, and that is how we have connected. She is an associate professor in the
Okay.
college. And
Okay.
the most important thing to know for us is that her book is being very popular among our students for
Very good.
international relations and Indian constitution. So I thought it
Okay.
would be great for the students to know the person. Uh, I mean, and to of whose books we have been following for so many years.
Okay.
So Piyu Ghosh is MA PhD in international relations
Okay.
from Jadavpur University,
Uh,
Kolkata, and she has a certificate in human rights from IGNOU. Currently, she is associate professor in the Department of Political Science, Lady Brabourne College, Kolkata, West Bengal.
okay.
She has special interest in international relations,
Okay.
international political economy, politics of South Asia, migration,
Mm.
refugee issues, and international humanitarian law. She is the
Okay.
author of the books titled International Relations and Indian Government and Politics, the books that I have been referring to. She has a monograph titled Bhutanese Refugees, a Forgotten Saga, which is based on rigorous research work and visit to the Bhutanese refugee camps in Nepal. She has a number of articles in reputed journals and chapters in edited books to her credit. She has worked as an intern with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, New
Mm.
Delhi. She has
Mm.
gone through training in peace studies in the Institute of Peace and Dialogue, Vienna, Austria. And
Okay.
she has also worked under teachers like Professor Johann Galtung, Dietrich Fischer, and others, who had
Okay.
illuminated her with their knowledge on conflict and conflict resolution. She has delivered lectures in several national and international seminars, including invited lecture in the Department of Islamic Political Science, Academic of Islamic Studies, Malaya, that is Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. She has
Mm.
been a speaker at the first international conference of Africa Asia Development University in Malaysia.
Yeah.
She is actively involved in the formulation of fundamentals of political science, glossary of political science from English to Bengali under the Commission for Scientific and Technical Terminology, Department of Higher Education, MHRD, Government of India. She has also been a part of the UGC project under the MHRD program titled National Mission for Education through ICT Tools, organized by St. Xavier's College, Kolkata. She has also been a part of developing reading materials and audiovisual lectures for postgraduation political science program of Netaji Subhash Open University. She is vigorously in research-oriented work and academic publications. Welcome, ma'am. And I would now request our father principal to uh, welcome you with his words.
A very good afternoon to all of you, and especially to our resource person, Doctor. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, Father.
Doctor, you girls, do I pronounce correctly? Such an illustrious and well-read person. I am surprised, and I'm really extremely happy that we got you for at least share your time and knowledge with us and with our students, especially. And I congratulate Ma'am Sharmista for getting you for at least managing to find some literally to get you for to be with us to share your knowledge, vast experience, and inspire our students and our own teachers. And most of us will be attending your lecture. I'm really happy, and I'm sorry that I came in a little late because these admission process are on, and here there are many students and parents. So personally, I don't have to meet them, but many are insisting they have to have a word with me, and that way the time went on, and I did not realize until I got the call from Madam Dharmesa. Sorry for that, and
No,
I'm glad that you are here together, and extremely happy that you are with us to share your knowledge and time, and wish you all the best, and maybe looking forward to know here. Maybe have more webinars with you. And wish you all the best. And thank you for your time. And also wish you all the best to our students and our teachers and all the participants. Okay. Good day and thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you. Samstha, you can carry on. What is the you may?
Ma'am, you can start now if you want.
Sharmishta, will you start the PowerPoint?
Okay, I can start. Is it visible, ma'am?
Let me see. No, I can see
Yeah, I'm
you.
already sharing it, ma'am.
Yeah, it is visible to me. It is visible.
Do I have to do something, Sharmishta, to have a glimpse of the slides?
Yes, madam. There are two profile of Madam Sharmishta Rakshit, so you can choose the second one.
Yeah, we lost the slides. It had come on for a short while.
Okay.
No, Father, I stopped presenting because it went.
Okay.
Actually, because this is totally for the students, so I can make a presentation even without the PPT, but for the students, we really need the PPT.
Yeah, I think now
It is.
should be on.
It is on. Yeah.
Visible.
Yes.
But Sharmita, I can't see it. I can see your picture only.
There will be two
We
screens.
see you. We see the slides now. Yeah.
Ma'am, you can see two screens in your mobile.
How can
one,
you see? Tell me.
Raju sir, can you help her, ma'am? Raju sir?
Yeah. Ma'am, there will be two screen of Madam Sharmishta Rakshit. One where she is presenting, one where she is talking. So choose the second one.
I got it.
Sharmishta Rakshit new.
Yes, I got it.
Okay.
Now, Sharmishta, you click on the hourglass and the full slide will be available.
Yeah, I know.
Now, clear.
Yes. Can you see?
Yes. Thank you so much. And I will say next, and you just go on changing. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. So it's quite a lot of students over here, 74 participants, and it's always a pleasure to address students because ultimately it is for them that we teachers are here. And as we had a talk amongst ourselves, Sharmishta and myself, uh, so we had planned that this should be a very student friendly and very simple kind of lecture, but it should also be informative for the students. As you can see, we are passing through a very troubled phase, and we know the pandemic is on, and every day there are almost, sometimes it is 52,000, but sometimes it is 67,000, and God knows what will happen to will be today's number of COVID affected in India. In fact, as we were trying out the kind of trial and error yesterday, I was very disturbed because in our own apartment, a lady has been affected by COVID, and I live with my very aged parents. So no, we are in a very tense situation. So each one of us, we are facing certain problems in our lives and livelihood, and the COVID has posed before us a number of challenges. We are not living in our normal life, and we are now very much hearing this word new normal, with the mask, with the sanitizer, and the social distancing. So if as human beings, we are facing so much of challenges. Think about the states and the governments which are trying to cope with the challenges being posed by the virus COVID-19. As far as the health sector is concerned, the economic sector is concerned, the political sector is concerned, the states and the government, they are into everything and they are now facing challenges from all spheres. So it is very pertinent that Sharmishta had selected, she was the one who selected this topic, that because you have a particular, in your syllabus, particular topic referring to third world, she was very insistent that because a lot of thing is happening on international order, post COVID-19, this and that. But it was she who thought out of the box, and she told me, ma'am, you talk something about third world and challenges which are being faced by the third world. So when we talked about this kind of challenges, a lot of kind of thoughts, some kind of came to my mind how to frame a lecture like this, because challenges ahead for the third world is quite a challenging topic for me also. And to teach in a very simple way, it's more challenging than I have ever thought. So uh, I've tried to keep it very simple, but again, I think that it should provide you some food for thought, that when after the lecture is over, you also have, or you will be able to raise some questions to yourself and try to find answers through research or through studying more reports and going into observe kind of thinking on your own and trying to find out what can be done or what should be done or what should have been done by the states and the governments. So now let us straight away come to the lecture. So COVID-19 challenges ahead for the third world. Sharmishta, next slide. Ah. So we are very familiar with the term third world. But don't you think when we are living in 2020, this is something which is very derogatory? Because being India have long been considered to be a part of a developing country. Now it is developed, and still are we, or do we belong to the first or second world? When it comes to politics, still we belong to the this developing world or the third world concept. But as far as economics is concerned, we are considered as developed. So it is a politics which goes on and it will go on. And this concept of third world is also a birth from such politics. And it is nowadays it is very rarely used. This term third world is usually when I was going through IMF and World Bank reports, it say poor countries, middle income countries, low income countries. Such were the kinds of classifications, and it was not used as third world, first world, second world. But still, we know that this term third world is somewhere in the back of the mind, and the mind is of not of those people who are in third world, but of those people who belong to the first and the second world. Because this concept of third world into a different dimension, I'll take you to a post-development scholars' perspective of this usage of third world, development, underdevelopment. So when we look at this particular term third, it is obviously a construction of the people who had tried to classify the world on the basis of economic performances. And when they had classified the world on the basis of economic performances, they had in their mind to manufacture consent and consensus around the concept that they were developing. That is manufacturing. It is very Gramscian. Manufacturing consent means that I am giving you a consent. You accept. That is, but I would do it in such a sophisticated and subtle way that it will go into your mindset and you would be indoctrinated in such a way that you won't even question why did I classify you as a first, second, or third word. So we find that in international relations, there are scholars who are known as the constructivists, like Alexander Nicholas Onuf and Alexander Wendt and various others. They had tried to hint on the point that in international relations, a lot of concept, for example, hegemony, or this concept of third world development, underdevelopment, these have been a product of construction. And it is the construction of not the weak ones, but a construction of the strong states that prevail in particular time period of history and dominant international relations. And it is they kind of construct. No, don't change.
Okay.
Sharmishta, the previous
Yeah.
slide.
I made a mistake. I'm very amateur in this one.
Yeah, keep it. This one. Okay. So it is a construction, and they construct in such a way that you are made to believe that what they are constructing is true. So, uh, for example, development is when we have full-fledged modernization, full-fledged scientific and technological revolution, full-fledged high GDP growth rate, economic growth rate, and all the richness. That if you consider, and if that is classified as development, and that is thrusted upon you, and then this parameter, with this parameter, your kind of development is tried to be measured, and it is found that if you are in a very bad shape and bad stage of development, you are considered as underdeveloped. So this construction of development, who did it? So like the constructivists, they say it's the hegemonic power or the most important player in international relations in different periods of the history who construct such concept and thrust this upon the others, and the others are made to believe that they really are developed or underdeveloped or in a transitional form of development. Therefore, what Onuf and Alexander Wendt they said is that international politics is a world of our making. International relations is a social construction rather than existing independently of human meaning and action. So this, in a nutshell, means that whatever you see around, previously it was the British, then post Second World War we have the hegemony of the US. From the 90s, you have a unipolar world, and the US hegemony, though it is on decline, but still the US is at a position where it dictates and calls the shots at all international institutions. And now in 2020, we can see how it can leave the WHO. It wants to withdraw from the United Nations. It has withdrawn from the Paris Climate Agreement. So it is the main or a kind of dominant power, even though a declining hegemon, because it's a multipolar world that we are having at this point of time. Even after the disintegration of Soviet Union, there was a multipolar world. Now it's a more multipolar world, but still the US hegemony may be on decline, but it is still a dominant power, and it calls the shot. And whether it's the IMF, whether it's the World Bank, whether it's the WHO, whether it's the United Nations, you can feel the domination of the US. So if US is the dominant power, then it will try to manufacture the norms, the regulations in international relations and also in the international political economy. So this has happened when the Britishers, they had uh, turned the entire world into the colony. This has happened in the post-Cold War era, post-Second World War era. This will go on happening post-COVID era. The only difference is that now China is a power, a revisionist power, which is trying to revise the existing status quo of the international relations. So, but my point is that in the entire period, you will find certain concepts have been, certain norms, certain regulations, certain kind of thinking have been manufactured, have been constructed, and have been imposed upon us. And this is, and you are made to believe that you are what which the West dictates you, and you it's very rare that you try to kind of question the kind of concepts that are trickle down from the West down to the global South. So similarly, when we look at this particular label, third, which I find it very derogatory. It's my friend. He said, it's one word. We have created this individual. Absolutely, he's right. It is a creation. I told him it's actually you are hinting at the point of constructiveness, that it is a creation and it has been created on the basis of an economic parameter or economic performance, how well you are doing economically. And that is where this development and underdevelopment stuff comes in, and that is where a new kind of that is post-development, which is a critic of development. They come in like Escobar. They come in and they have questioned the entire paradigm of development, which is a product of Western thinking and which is very much a concept or reflection of Western kind of development, which have been thrusted upon the global South, which is considered to be the third world. And this third world, as we know, the construction part of it, there's a little bit of history. Next slide, Sharmishta. Uh, there is a little history where this post-development scholars, they hint upon a particular time frame from when you can see that this entire global South was labeled as underdeveloped, and it was none other than the US president who did this. Because if you look at the time frame, it was almost the beginning of formal beginning of the Cold War, and it was Truman who came up with this Truman Doctrine. We all know about the aid package, the Marshall Plan. So it's like that. So it was Harry Truman in 1949 when he said, when he tried to define Africa, Asia, Latin America as underdeveloped areas. The post-development scholars, they said at one stroke, you have just turned the huge population that you have into a concept of underdevelopment, where you consider development from your perspective. So it's a construction. And Escobar, they have said the development discourse has created an extremely efficient apparatus for producing knowledge about and the exercise of power over the third world. Why? Because if you have your own concept of development and if you trust that upon the global south, and they will try their level best to match up to your kind of development, to your concept of development, and you will come in and you'll say that I will help you with the aid, with the package, but in lieu of that, why don't you give something? So it will be again a kind of new colonialism which will be imposed upon the global south, most of which had been already under colonial domination for years, hundreds of years. So it was a scheme, almost a scheme, as they say. It's producing knowledge. It's very Foucauldian, that you produce a knowledge in such a way that you are made to believe that you are underdeveloped, and I come in aid of you, and indirectly I control you through entire political and economic process, through the process of neocolonialism. So this post-development critic, they have been vehemently criticizing the concept, the whole discourse of development from their perspective. And one branch of it you must have studied. It's the dependency theory, Andre Gunderford, Rolf Friedrich. Another branch is modern world system theory, Immanuel Wallerstein. They have tried to explain how dependency has been created, how underdevelopment has been created in this part of the world, which is labeled as third world by the core countries, by the developed countries, and the developing countries have just fallen into the trap of the developed countries, and they have been, and they will be exploited by the developed countries for their resources and cheap labor. And as the developing countries, they lack in R&D, in technological knowledge, in sense of resources, infrastructural development, the developed world will come and try to be a very good friend of you, and will try to address your problems, and immediately, like an octopus, will spread its tentacles and will kind of strangulate you and siphon your wealth and pass it on from the semi-periphery and the peripheral countries to the core countries. Of course, the post-development scholars, the modern world system theorists, and the dependency theorists, they are not beyond criticisms. They have been criticized a lot because they're providing a generalized kind of theory of post-development or dependency, because they're disregarding the fact that even in the third world, I told you, India is different. India is a different case. China is a different case. Brazil, the BRICS country, they are a different case. They are at different levels of development. So all the countries, third world countries, are not at the equal level of development, or all are not experiencing the same kind of economic performances or economic malfunctioning. So it is a kind of generalization. They have been accused, these post-developmental scholars, the dependency theorists, and the modern world system theorists. That nevertheless, they have made valuable contribution by their critique of development, which is a very, very Western concept. And in that critique, they have shown how these third world countries have been exploited and have been labeled as underdeveloped by the dominant paradigm established by the dominant powers in international relations. So much. I hope you understand all the construction about the concept of third world. Now let us see in different historical times. You have next slide, Mishta. sorry, in different historical time, you have different kinds of classifications of first world, second world, third world. For example, if you must have, and you have, I know, have studied Cold War, so you have no, no, Shremisha, don't change.
Sorry.
First world, second world is like এরপরে yes, বাস ওটাই বড় করে দাও, বাস বাস বাস। So Cold War was between USA and this USSR, and the rest of the world was there. So first world, United States, second world, USSR, and the rest, the whole lot, they belong to the third world. So this was a very Cold War kind of concept that emerged at that point of the time. Then in 1955, the Bandung Conference, which is also very important when we study the emergence of non-aligned movement of the third world countries, where you have, that was the first forum of the third world countries, and the term third world began to do rounds in international relations. And you have this conference where this was the first kind of conference where all the third world, all the global south, they met and they charted out their demands, their kind of uh, their vision of a new world, their vision of the political path of non-alignment, that is not aligning either with the Soviet Union or with the US or United States. So this became the kind of usage. This third world became prevalent at this point of the time. But at that particular time also, you have a Chinese concept, Mao's concept. When Mao, just like Xi Jinping, he also had a kind of a power calculation in his mind, because China always aspires to be a world leader. It had during Mao, and now Xi Jinping. So you know what is happening. The next victim will be Taiwan. Okay, after India, it's Taiwan. So he wanted to be the leader, or China rather, not to use a personality in his name. Mao wanted China to be the leader of the third world. So he developed his own concept. He said USA and USSR, they fall in the category of first world. Second world is Japan, Europe, Canada. Third world, Asia, he leaves out Japan, Africa, and Latin America. So in different phases of history or international relations, you have different concepts of third world. But the main criteria which has been used for classifying this first world, second world, and third world thing has been always an economic perspective. It is underdevelopment which has become the hallmark of third world, and it is the economic poor economic performance which has become the identity mark or the hallmark of third world, which separates it from the rest of the world. So this economic parameter is the most important, which is used still today, despite the fact that in 1990s another criteria became very important, that is Human Development Index and also Gender Development Index, which takes the human and the social aspect of a human being into consideration when they are trying to consider where a country as developed or undeveloped. So that is a very different concept. And so nowadays, not only you have a classification of countries on the basis of GDP, but you also have UNDP report, Human Development Report, every year on the basis of the parameters which have been identified for Human Development Index, Gender Development Index, Gender Inequality the usage of such human development index primarily still it is the GDP, the PPP, these things, these economic that you cannot disregard them, and that is still a dominant kind of calculative measure which is used when you are trying to find out at what level of development a country is. So economic criteria has been the most important and will be the most important criteria, although we have this human development index or gender development index. And one thing, if you are economically in third world countries, if you just check the GDP and the gender inequality index or gender development index or human development index, you will find that some countries like India, they rank very high in as far as economic performance is considered. But when it comes to human development index or gender development index, you will find that India's ranking is quite low. But nevertheless, no one bothers about that. Everybody, every now and then, whenever you're looking now in the COVID situation about how India's economy is going to function in another 6 months, you will find it is 4.2% negative, 4.1% positive. So it is the GDP or the PPP which is still very important criteria when we try to classify a country as developed or underdeveloped. Not so much of third world, because as I told you, it is nowadays it is not so much in use the concept of third world, but nevertheless it was when this during the Cold War years. This was quite a common usage in international relations. Now, when you come to IMF or World Bank, if you go through the through the reports, you will find it is again classified on the basis of economic performances like poor countries, low income countries, like this, middle income countries, high income countries. So I'm just giving you an idea about how changes happen, and also that because third world is in your syllabus, how this kind of the politics of the usage of the term third world it evolved. And you must have studied that next slide, Shormishta. You must have studied it besides the economic underdevelopment that the third world countries they suffer from. They also have, they belong to the whole chunk of them, they belong to the global south. You must know that it was Brand who made a classification of of countries of an imaginary line. If you just take, it is not it's not a geographical line. No latitude or longitude is involved in this. He just said, you take a globe, take a knife, and just cut it into half, and you will find that the north belongs to the developed countries, and the south belongs to the developing world or the poor world or the underdeveloped or least developed world who have been classified as third. So he said that the north is global north, and the bottom portion, which is the south, is the global south. So when we talk about the global south, we cannot forget about the colonial history that the global most of the global south they had encountered or experienced. And in India we know how we had been transformed into a colony of the Britishers, and how we fought for our independence. And after just for just today and day after tomorrow and Saturday, we have 15th of August. We know that that is the Independence Day of India, and it is the reminder of how we fought against the British Raj, and we won our independence at the cost loss in the at the cost of the loss of a huge number of revolutionaries, and it was আমরা বলি শহীদের রক্তে রাঙানো আমাদের স্বাধীনতা। So it's a reminder that we every Independence Day that we observe is a reminder of our colonial past. So this global south, we are not kind of an isolated we have a it's not that we have an isolated history, but it's the global south which have a common shared history of colonial subjugation or the colonial legacy that they had experienced. And of course, even after the independence, it was an economic dependency that they had developed upon the West. Because after independence, take India's experience, we were not that rich, we are not that at the level of technological innovation, scientific innovation. We had so much of money that from 16th August 1947 that we would become a rich nation. No, we have been drained white. So we needed money resources from our colonial masters and their friends and the dominant powers in international relations and the institutions that had been created at that point of the time. And especially after the Bretton Woods systems, that's institutions that had been created in 1946, and the IMF and World Bank, they came up, and then gradually GATT, which is renamed as WTO, this came up. We know that how the developing countries, the least developed countries, they ran to these institutions to get money for infrastructural development, for development in every aspect of their country. And these loans are not for free. They have attachments with them, and these attachments are called IMF or World Bank conditionalities, which claim a huge cost from the countries who are taking the loan in the terms that they have to liberalize, they have to follow new liberal policies, they have to service their loan. And you will be surprised to know that the 1980s, the debt crisis in the third world countries were beyond your thinking. And the sub-Saharan countries, it was in the 1980s, is called to be the lost decade for them, because the developed countries, they had duped the sub-Saharan African countries to take one after another loans from the World Bank in the name of servicing loan A, you take loan B. To service loan B, take loan C. And at the point of the time, the petroleum or the as we see, the crude oil prices fell. So the African countries who were dependent on the revenue that they earned from the sale of the oil at that point of the time could not repay the loan, and it was a deplorable condition. And that's why it is known 1980s has been classified as a lost decade for the sub-Saharan countries. So this dependency has been created through the institutions which have been constructed by the dominant powers, especially the US in the post Second World War era. And it is still continuing. And as I said, that the global South have been made a victim of colonialism first and neo-colonialism next. Besides this, there is a silver lining also, that the third world countries, they have been a strong voice in the United Nations, in the non-aligned movement. They had demanded a new international economic order. But again, they have become very feeble, because in the United Nations, we know that the General Assembly, it's like a world parliament, but it can only talk, it can only discuss, but the actual power lies with the P5 or the permanent 5 members of the United Nations Security Council. And given the presently the globalization, the neoliberal economic policy, you don't find that the third world countries or the developing countries coming together as they used to be united during the Cold War era, because everybody is grappling with their own economic problems. So a common voice of the third world is lacking. It was a little bit during the climate conference, but again, it is thought to be India and China are giving leadership to the third world countries. But again, there are a lot of problems in this climate talks, and you see how America walked out of the Paris Agreement. It just gave me a reminder that when the developing countries they wanted a new international economic order in 1980s, President Reagan in the Cancun summit, he said, "We are not over here to do charity. You go and you develop yourself. Why should we give even 0.1% of our GDP to you?" So it's same thing. There is no pollution. There is nothing. What is in the Paris climate agreement? We just work out of it, and then you find that it is also working out of you. Who it could have USA could have stayed in the WHO and played an important role. It's not so. But leaving the scene is not a very good gesture. If you want to be a dominant power in relations, you have to be there, and you have to find ways of balancing China. If you really see, China is a menace in the international relations now. So, given the backdrop of third world countries, their basic features, now let us just next slide. Sharmishta, next slide. Sharmishta, next slide. Now you can see this COVID situation till yesterday, where we are, South Asia. You can see it's India, it's topping the list, even in number of deaths. So the situation is very grim. Whether it's South Asia, next, next, Africa, next, Sharmisha, next. Okay. Yes. Look at Africa. It's also in a very bad shape. Look at Latin America. Next. Latin America. No, Latin America. Before that? Yes. Is it? Next. Next. Yes. Look at Latin. The previous slide. Not this one, the previous one. Yes. Latin America.
Can you
Next.
see now? Can you see now?
No, this is Africa. This is Africa. Next,
one?
Latin America. Yes. Bus, stop. Look at Latin America. Look at the numbers. You'll be amazed to find out, or traumatized to find out. 50 lakh of the cases, world cases, are coming from Latin American countries combined. This is some of the statistics. There are so many countries. I've just taken some which are most affected. Latin America is now the epicenter of COVID-19 crisis. And it is contributing till yesterday 50 lakhs of the cases, world cases. And the situation is becoming more and more worse because these countries, if you just think about Latin America, just imagine the map of Latin America. Each country has landed boundaries with each other. And so there is movement of people, there is some kind of activity. So extremely, this infection is spreading very fast in Latin America and taking a whole lot of casualty also. So, given in the backdrop that the countries, the South Asia, the Latin American countries, the African countries, the South Asian countries, not all, giving aside the BRICS countries, the rest, they were, they are not so much of economically uh, an economic giant or economically very well countries. You can now imagine what are the challenges that these countries are facing in tackling the COVID-19 crisis. Because the COVID-19 crisis, the virus has not come alone. Because the virus, to combat the virus, the countries went for a lockdown. And when you have a lockdown, you have the shutdown of the economy. When you have the shutdown of the economy, a large portion of your population lose their jobs. And we all know we are going through it and we have experienced it when we saw the migrant, or rather we'll call them interstate workers in India, how what the trouble they had faced. They had lost their job, they could not pay their rents, so they had nothing to eat, so they wanted to get back to their home or homestay. And what the trouble they have seen, and more, a lot of people have died on the road, that we all know. So the corona crisis is not a health crisis alone, it is an economic crisis, it is a social crisis, because as we see, Antonio Guterres, he says, the UN Secretary General, he told in the Security Council that this pandemic could potentially lead to an increase in social unrest, a lapse in state authority, and even violence that would greatly undermine our collective capabilities to fight the virus. For the countries that have a handful of ventilators, by this he is hinting at the poor, the low income countries which are facing the pandemic. He says for the countries that have a handful of ventilators, for millions of people, the possibility that 1 in 1,000 could contract COVID-19 and 15% of those could need care in an intensive care unit is staggering. So this, in a very small, in a summarized speech, Antonio Guterres just has posed the entire political, economic, health challenge that the third world countries are facing right at this point of time. Next slide, Sharmishta. See the number of, till yesterday, see the number of deaths. The deaths are given in the next slide. The number of affected persons who have contracted just in these three continents. Americas, this have been taken together by the United Nations, but they have, see, you can see that it, leaving aside United States, how the Latin American countries, Brazil, Mexico, Peru, and Colombia, they are contributing for a huge number of worldwide cases. And they are having a terrible problem of providing medical and health facilities to their citizens. There is acute crisis of medical as well as economic opportunities for the people. As the World Bank, it has projected that if this pandemic goes on like this and economic activity remains suspended, then the global economy would. Shormishta, some other is presenting himself. The slide just vanished. Mr. Rajesh Kumar Nath, please.
Yes, I think Madam Shami has lost her connection. I think.
Shormishta?
I think she lost her connection.
I
She's
lost
not
the
here.
connection. I came back.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
I lost
These
my
are,
connection.
uh,
I could not hear
this
anything.
will happen, this is from Kolkata to Agartala. Network
Ma'am, you were in this slide?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Uh, so,
Just 1 minute,
uh,
ma'am.
okay, कोई problem. Yeah, absolutely. So if this outbreak continues and the lockdown it also continues, then the global economy is going to contract by 8% in 2020. And if economic activity is resumed, then the contraction will be at 5%. Still, the World Bank and the IMF projected that Nigeria, India, and Congo, which are a home to a third of the world's poor, they will have a per capital growth rates. You might be surprised to know that their GDP will grow by 0.8% for Nigeria, 2.1% for India, 0.3% for Congo. So this is the data which I got in the month of June. But today, yesterday, a study which came out in Economic Times, it said that India would witness a negative minus growth of 4.5% in 2020. So we know what a negative growth means. It means again more and more economic hardships. So next slide, Sharmishta. Remove this. Next, go to the next one. Yes. So if India's GDP or economic growth contracts in such a way, we have to be very careful, because there will be again job loss, there will be hunger, there will be poverty. Uh, of course, the central government and also the state government, they're trying to come up with social security measures, but we actually know that India is such a vast country with such a huge population. It is very difficult to reach to to every needy person in this country. It's a very tough situation, and it is not only for India, for Africa, for Latin America, and you will be surprised to know that this in Africa, the they don't have the PPE things, the medical facilities, the medicines. They don't have the money to revamp their health infrastructure. In India, we boast of GDP, but the hollowness of the health infrastructure was just made visible by this corona crisis. So the challenges it is not one challenge that the corona has posed before us. It is challenges. Infection is on rise. The infrastructure is not geared to address such emergencies. The vaccine nowhere in sight. Sometimes they say it will come in December. Sometimes they say it will come in 2021. Sometimes they say it will take another 15 months. Of course, Russia has come up with the vaccine, but again, there are so many question marks that has this vaccine gone through the proper process of testing, of human testing? So everything is trial and error. This we are prepared with our defense mechanisms. We invest a lot on them, but we are not prepared. And when our health sector comes in, our health infrastructure is totally in a bad shape. It has to be revamped. The COVID-19 has taught us so many lessons. And we, the developing world, we have a paucity of funds. As I was telling, the African countries, they don't have the money. The Latin American countries, think about Venezuela. It is going through, it was since 2017, 2018, it was going through a political crisis. Two-person, Maduro and another person, they are claiming themselves to be the president. And in that and Venezuela being another economy which is very much dependent on the revenue earned from the oil, suffered a lot because it's only very recently that the oil prices the global oil prices started rising, but it has been falling from 2014. And Venezuelan economic crisis started from 2014 because it was not, the economy was not planned properly. It was just based on sale of oil. They did not have any domestic industry. So what happened in 2016, 17, 18 when this crisis and as well as this crude prices, they started falling. There was inflation, there was food crisis. People had to stand in a queue to collect food from counters, from the government sponsored counters, and there was no health facilities, nothing. So there was mass exodus of the Venezuelan population as refugees to the neighboring states of Colombia and others. So what happens is that Venezuela now, when it faces this corona crisis, how it can cope with this crisis? Plus, what will happen to the refugees who have Venezuelan refugees who have gone to the neighboring states? And when it comes to refugees, it's not the Venezuelan refugees. As the IOM and United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, they have said that as this corona crisis spreads into this vulnerable group of migrants and refugees, the situation gets worsened because one, they're not in their own country. Two, they do access to medical facilities, but being a refugee, they only can access that amount of facility which is being provided by the host state. Third, they don't speak the language, they don't look like the host population. And when the corona, the COVID outbreak has taken place, they have become the victims of violence by the local population because they think that these people might spread the COVID crisis. So it is this vulnerable group of refugees and migrants all over the third world countries, especially the third world countries, which generate maximum amount of refugees. The IOM and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees have said they are at risk. They are at risk. And if you go through the IOM Facebook or website or UNHCR's website, you will find day to day how things are turning out in the refugee among the refugees and the migrant population. You find a picture, the true picture being depicted in the sites, and you find how much hardships these people facing. We can't even think about that. You have lost your country, you are at the mercy of another country, and you are facing the violence and from the host of the population of your host country. So the challenge, the COVID has not given us only one challenge. There are many challenges. There are many challenges which the states they have to tackle. Otherwise, the might be the virus will be gone one fine day. But the after the post COVID, tackling the human crisis will be a problematic proposition. And if not tackled, as the United Nations, this is also from the United Nations website, they say if or more likely when the COVID-19 virus further spreads in countries already weakened by war and poverty, it will not only threaten lives of thousands, as I've said, the vulnerable population who have fled their country due to war or due to threats on their lives or due to a host of other reasons and are facing a deplorable condition in refugee camps. Not only their lives will be at peril, but they could also be uh, the COVID-19 crisis can also bring an onslaught on peace, and conflict might be back. So there is not only a fear of virus, but fear of conflict and violence, which is looming in international politics, especially in the third world countries. So it's a very difficult situation, and it is how robust you are, how you can, how prepared you are to fight the virus as well as the socio-political and economic crisis that are following the COVID-19 will actually determine whether you can survive in international politics or not. It is very, very important because on one hand, you have to have the COVID content. Number two, health sector revamp. Number three, economy running. So each of the third world countries and even the developed worlds, they are at loss what to do. Even United States, every now and then Trump comes with different propositions. They are confused what to do. Economy is shattered, lives of the people are shattered, there's no hope, no so COVID has posed challenges for the developed world, but more for the developing world because they don't have the money. So in the next slide, India in its next slide, uh, India in its bid to do or give a global leadership, uh, not the way China does. It has come up with uh, noble initiatives on its part. As far as WHO is concerned, you know that India has become the chair of the WHO, and that means quite a lot of responsibility India has and can play an important role in this vaccine kind of alliance that has taken place, and how this COVID crisis can be tackled at a collective in a collective way rather than in an isolated country to country way. So this is we have to see how India really plays a role at home. In United Nations, very recently, Prime Minister Modi, he went in the ECOSOC meeting and he said that we have made fight against COVID-19 a people's movement. And then in India, it's supposed to play an important role next year when it chairs the United Nations Security Council, and it has been also elected as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. So we have to see how India uses or utilizes its position in this international forum. But most important is that at bilateral front, India has gone all out and have tried to help its neighbors as well as its developing countries. It has supplied hydroxychloroquine, of course, to USA under threat from Mr. Trump, but it has supplied hydroxychloroquine to a lot of countries, though we know that hydroxychloroquine is not an apt medicine for COVID-19, but still, when it was, this is trial and error that is going on. So when it was said, yes, hydroxychloroquine will work, so we have this Bengal chemical over here in Kolkata, which started preparing hydroxychloroquine, and it started sending shipments to the countries which needed hydroxychloroquine. But the most important is the Vande Bharat that's going on, which is bringing back the stranded Indians all over the world, and also sending stranded foreigners from India to their respective countries. But the most important is the medical support that India is giving. Uh, it's India's neighborhood first. Prime Minister Modi says India's neighborhood first. So neighborhood first policy, Bangladesh, Bhutan, even Nepal. Very recently, we are having a diplomatic wrangle with Nepal, we know, but still, India has supplied to Nepal medical support because it believes in neighborhood first policy, and it has given medical support to a lot of African countries. I've just mentioned a few. If you go to the Ministry of External Affairs Facebook and also website, you will have the whole lot of videos also and report coverages where India is giving medical support, gifting medicine, gifting medical kits, testing kits, gifting PPE to the African countries like Guinea, Ghana, Congo, Laos, and also Maldives, Guatemala. And this is quite a good role that India is doing in Africa. But India is not doing it in a way as China is doing. China is also doing some, is coming up with its aid package to the African countries. But India does not have that. I have to be the leader of African countries also. But China has a secret vision of usurping position. So it is coming with its aid packages to the African countries, but with a motive. But whatever it is, I'm just now focusing on India. I'm not going into China because this is a different chapter. But India, you must know that is coming up well with its medical support to the third world countries. And what about the internet slide? What about the international institutions, that is the IMF and the World Bank? They have created the catastrophe containment and relief trust. They are providing aid to the developing countries, especially the African countries, which are facing a huge financial crunch, and they don't have the money to revamp their medical structure. They can't provide a PPE kit to the doctors, to the frontline fighters. They can't even don't have ICUs, enough ventilators. So IMF, the World Bank, they came up with the status containment and relief trust, and they're giving loans to this country. Previously, when you approached for loan to this international institution, it was a very difficult process. There is the way of giving loans, and they the managing director of the IMF, she called for the bilateral loan givers also to waive give the African countries a debt relief, that so that the heavy burden of servicing the debt on the part of the African countries, it is eased. So the G20 countries, they have readily agreed with that. They said that okay, we'll waive the kind of debt servicing that they had to do, and other economic natures. They are trying to ease the burden of uh, this debt on the African countries. But it is still not enough. It is still not enough. You can see the next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next.
Ma'am, next slide is given. World Bank Group.
Yeah, next slide. Okay. Next, go to the next. Yes. And you can see that from this slide only where how this World Bank and IMF, which sector they are particularly targeting when they are um, giving this catastrophe relief loans. And you can see it's absolutely centered on the health sector, because if you don't revamp your health sector, the African health sector is not revamped, Africa will be just lose a huge population to this COVID-19 crisis. So you can really fathom the gravity of the crisis when it comes to the third world countries, because we don't have the health infrastructure, we don't have the money, we have not properly invested in research for the health sectors. So the challenge is for the entire world, but the challenge is more for the mm, third world countries, given our long history of underdevelopment. Though I again say that we cannot generalize the third world countries and put them in one bracket, because there are many countries which are performing, like the BRICS countries, which are performing really well when we consider economic from the economic GDP point of view. But the situation is very grave. The third world countries, they have a Herculean task of coping with the virus, with the economic problem, and it can only be seen that this IMF and World Bank, they're coming up with their aid packages, but again it is too little because the population is huge and the disease is so contagious that this we can see every day, we can see that how it is spreading. So we can just hope, there should always be the hope that this crisis gets over and we get remdesivir, favipiravir, Covihalt, Ciplenza. These are all readily available in the shops before the vaccine makes its um, makes a breakthrough and reaches us, and it will take quite a lot of time. But these medicines, if it is made available, then it can be just treated like a simple flu. I'm not a doctor, but we all have become half doctors, because every day we are going through the web and looking at the new kinds of inventions, the remdesivir, favipiravir, how they are being introduced in the Indian market, how Cipla and this and that are coming out with their medicine. So only with I can say that let's hope that we overcome this pandemic, and we shall overcome. And I hope that God be with us and stay safe. And thank you. I hope that you have all benefited from the lecture. Thank you so much. Ramesh, done.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, would you mind if we keep 5 minutes or 10 minutes of questions if the students
Okay,
have
okay.
any?
You just
Uh,
pick now 4 5 questions. You pick it up and just put it to me. I will answer. Try to answer it.
okay, they have not yet started questions. So if they can come up and start asking you, uh, how much time we should keep for that, maybe.
Sormita, why don't you ask them to inbox you?
Yeah,
You pick up the question and put it
yeah.
to me.
Okay.
Okay.
So those who are having any query, you want to ask any question, can you please send your questions in the inbox so that we can answer, students or
Or at
participants?
least they can give their feedback whether they have how they have understood the
Yeah,
problems of the third world
if you
country.
can give your feedback or any query if you have regarding the discussion today that was held, would you like to comment? You can give your feedback or your questions. I can see one of our colleagues saying, "Thank you, ma'am. It's really very informative discussion." Moinul sir, if you can unmute yourself and uh, talk to ma'am, it would be nice. Hello, Moinul sir. Hello, can you hear me, Moinul sir? Or if any other participants have anything to comment or any query, if you have, if you can inbox. There is a question uh, from Shreya Pal. She's
Hmm.
from third semester political science honors. She says, "Good afternoon, ma'am. It was indeed an informative and eye-opening session. My question is, with COVID crisis at its worst, are we looking at a global economic crisis? worse in the economic end and severe on the political front, like as in the decline of democracy? Could you get
Very
the question?
pertinent question, as we can all, as we have seen and we're experiencing across the globe. Uh, it's kind of again Foucaultian concept, a surveillance state, a panopticon state coming up, and with an app, you can your body temperature can be monitored, and but how far that app won't access your personal information, you don't know. So wherever you are going, you are being followed by this app if you download it. So it's very difficult, and maybe a more uh, activity on the part of the state in the name of tackling the crisis can come in, and more economic decisions can be taken disregarding the people, given the people sitting back in their home due to the lockdown and shutdown, in the name that they are doing something, some reforms in the economy, so that they can get best results in 2021. Absolutely, everything what she says is correct. But everything has to be seen and watched, and only in the next year we can conclude that yes, there has been a decline of democracy across the globe, because there is a democracy transparency index also is there. There is a democracy measuring index, and there you can find out where India's democracy stands at the ranking, where as US's democracy stands at, whether China is classified as authoritarianism or not. They have their labeling, again labeling, uh, democracies, near democracies, transitional democracies, authoritarianism, and you can just find out, and you'll find that overall, all over the world, there is a decline of democracy, and COVID-19 might uh, again lead to a lot of decline of democracy, and a panopticon state and a very Foucaultian concept might come up, and there will be always surveillance on us in the name of health checkup or
Thank
health
you, ma'am.
support.
Hope Shreya, you got your answer. Uh, Ma'am, one query from our academic dean, Holy Cross College, Dr. Pankaj Chakravarti. He is also associate professor in the Department of Political
Acha.
Science.
Yes.
So he has some observation to share.
Oh yes, sure.
Sir, if you can unmute yourself and please ask.
Okay, first of all, I think it was a wonderful session, madam. I congratulate you and thank you for sharing this with our students. It was really a pleasure to listen to you. It's not a query exactly, just like if you look at this pandemic situation and if you look at the third world countries and the problems which you nicely portrayed in front of the students and all of us, don't you think there is an opportunity also for the third world countries due to this pandemic to change their status and tagline as a third world nation? But I think India, to some extent, is thinking in that line. When we look at, we don't know yet the how much it will be implemented, the Atmanirbharta and all this. But can we also look at it as an opportunity for the third world countries where they could bring change in their system and the tag as third world country?
That's why I said it's too early to comment. You yourself said yeah, Atmanirbhar Bharat. We see Atmanirbhar next time, next year on 7th of August, it was the National Handloom Day. And on that same day, the handloom advisory boards were all fizzled out. So it's very, economy. We cannot just say it's good, it's bad. You have to keep and watch another 6 months performance. You have to study, and then you can say that whether we have done well or not. Because uh, whether you speak in terms of politics or economics, time is you have to give some time, and And the economic, especially, you have to give time. It's just unlocking has started. Economic activity has started, but again, different sectors are facing different problems. Then, as I said, government is trying to provide some social security, but provided a huge population, how this social security can reach every Indian is another problem. So it has to be watched. And of course, look at us. We have turned a problem into opportunity. So I'm in Kolkata. Have you ever thought of having an interactive session at Agartala? I'm I'm not so tech savvy. Yes, I am tech savvy, but we are now taking online classes, right? First, so our generation is not like this bachas, the kiddos. They can just do this thing within minutes with the mobile. But we really had to learn Google Duo, Google Meet, Zoom. We have to download it, and then I asked my students in my first quite a few sessions in May, it helped me out. Zoom, how to do the Zoom and all these things. So we have also put a lot of effort, the teachers. And mind you, not the teachers are all of our age. There are people who are nearing 60s also. They're also trying to adjust to the new normal. Of course, I should say there's always an opportunity in every crisis, but the will, the, how you're going to implement that and how you're going to utilize that is very important. So we have to only pray that everything really works well, and we really can turn this crisis into opportunity. That's why I pointed out at India's role in multilateral cooperation, how it is now playing in the world. So let's see.
Thank you very much. I think it was very rightly said by you. Will matters if the will is there. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Shomisha, are we
Thank
through?
you, sir. Yeah. One more question, ma'am, from one of our students of political science honors. He says,
This will be the last one.
okay.
I-
He says, Madam, according to studies from Seoul University, Korea, they predicted that China's economy is seeing a positive growth instead of declining. How do you think China managed this? How do you think they managed to stay so much unaffected by the global economic crisis despite being the origin country of COVID-19?
Okay. The thing is that uh, the entire China was not affected by the crisis, and they were very fast in this lockdown effort, and so they recovered fast. They recovered very quickly, and they have the infrastructure. They could construct the makeshift hospitals, makeshift camp, and they just mobilized their entire thing in that particular Wuhan province. So it was not entire China which was affected. It was Wuhan was totally locked down, and now also you are having small COVID crises. So wherever this is happening, they're going for entire lockdown, and it's an authoritarian regime, so they won't mind whether you like it or not like it. They will bulldoze it, and when the unlock, and so they started unlocking first. So once they have unlocked themselves first, they are trying to revamp what to say, to put the economy on the track, but it is not that easy. Of course, they have started the economy. If you must look at all the reports, you must look at all the reports. There are reports that in China too, it was dependent upon the world market because it has spread worldwide. Its tentacles are spread worldwide. But now, because the international communication, international everything has come to a standstill, it is not receiving orders mainly from America and from the rest of the world. So the companies, they might have started, but when you don't have the demand for your things, you are really facing a problem. And for the graduates in China, they're really facing a problem because there are job losses. And so when you have job losses, So no new jobs are created. So these graduates, they are now grappling where to go and how to earn a living. So you have to look into both sides of the story. There might be a report that it is doing well, but how much it is doing well, you have to find other reports also, whether China actually is facing a problem or not. But they were the first one to go into lockdown and first one to come out of lockdown. So once out of lockdown, they've started their economic activity. So it is showing a positive turn. But to retain the positive turn, they have to have a global demand. So again, time will speak whether this global demand will come or not. So they're investing much on the COVID vaccine. So once this COVID vaccine is out, they would earn their money, their revenue from this selling of the COVID. They will try to capture the vaccine market also. This is also going to come out. There's really going to be a vaccine war in the coming days. Okay.
Uh, there are more questions, but there are
But I
feedback,
think
ma'am, from
we should
no,
wrap
no,
up.
no, not questions. Feedback from students that they have been saying this, that it was a very wonderful and informative session. It was really helpful for them. And ma'am, before we conclude, can we have an official vote of thanks to you? May I request Sir Rajesh to unmute yourself and propose the vote of thanks? Sir,
Thank you,
you can
madam.
also, yeah.
Honorable Principal, respected Speaker, Madam Dr. P.U. Ghosh, Chandrika Basamurunta, Madam, dear colleagues, and my beloved students. Very good afternoon to all of you. I'm highly privileged to be asked to propose vote of thanks in this special event. First of all, I would like to convey my gratitude and special thanks to the speaker, Dr. P.U. Ghosh, Madam, for your valuable time and wonderful session for our students in this present situation. I'm sure our students have learned a lot about the challenges of the COVID-19 situation and its challenges to the third world countries. Thank you, madam. I'd also like to give a special thanks to our principal, Dr. Father Benike John, CSC, for accepting our proposal and supporting the event full-heartedly. Thank you, Father. My heartfelt regard and thanks to Professor Chandrika Basamudindar for your valuable time for us, madam. Thank you. I would like to extend my hearty thanks to the HOD of Political Science Department, Madam Shamishta Rakshit, and whole department for organizing such a wonderful event for our students. I also would like to give a special thanks to Mr. Jinesh Augenstein for uh, giving all the technical support to make the event successful. Thank you, Jinesh sir. Last but not the least, I would like to convey my heartfelt thanks to all our beloved students for your valuable participation, without which such event has no value. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I want
Thank
to
you.
thank Sir Rajesh, Assistant Professor of Political Science Department, Holy Cross College, for always being such a help to the
Thank you,
department.
madam.
He was there since last evening, all through all the trials and all that. Thank you so much. Father, you would like to say something? You're going to.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was a wonderful session. So I was occasionally interrupted by people coming in and getting in and out of my office, but still most of it I follow. It's a wonderful topic too. I love to listen to that, and I was all through on. Thank you very much for your time and all of you. Congratulations. Good day. Good day.
Thank you, Father. Before we
So, Mr.
conclude,
Thank you. I must thank you. I must
I'm
thank you also.
I must thank you, ma'am, so for readily accepting our proposal to come and speak to our students. We would like to have.
Actually, I had always wanted to go to Agartala to address your students, but this pandemic and all this. So I thought you really give there you are proposing such a kind of interactive session. I said, okay, let me meet your students also.
Yes, ma'am. We will look forward to have you amongst us in person also after
Mm.
this crisis gets over, and we also look forward to have more association with you and people from Brevon. It's a great honor always for me to be associated with this
Okay, have a
institution.
good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Students, before
Thank
you
you.
leave, kindly fill up a form that has been sent to you, I guess, in the chat box and also in the WhatsApp group. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being with us. Thank you so much.